Listen, this was never supposed to happen like this. This was supposed to be controlled, polished, safe. But instead, one quiet question detonated years of rumors, resentment, and whispered accusations. And in that moment, Meghan Markle didn't just lose control of the interview, she lost control of the mask. It starts deceptively calm, too calm, the kind of calm that feels staged, rehearsed, airtight. Meghan walks into that studio already armored, every movement measured, every smile calibrated. This wasn't a conversation, it was a performance designed to reclaim the narrative. And for the first stretch, it worked. She sat perfectly upright, hands folded neatly in her lap, voice smooth, eyes bright, delivering answers that sounded thoughtful but revealed absolutely nothing. Classic Meghan. Professional, poised, untouchable. But here's the thing no one wants to admit. The cracks were already there. A pause that lingered half a second too long. A blink that came too fast. A jaw tightening and releasing like she was biting down on something unsaid. Her fingers pressed together so hard the knuckles nearly bleached white. Most people watching at home missed it. Live TV is great at disguising stress as elegance, but the tension was already humming beneath the surface, waiting. And then the interviewer changed the rhythm. Not aggressive, not rude, worse, calm, surgical. Focused in a way that feels polite but predatory. The tone shifted so subtly you almost didn't notice, but Meghan did. Her body registered it instantly. Her posture stayed regal, but her stillness grew heavy, defensive, like she was bracing for impact without knowing where the hit would come from. The back and forth banter died. The studio air thickened. This wasn't promotion anymore. This was an examination. Her answers continued, but her voice betrayed her. Just a faint edge, barely there, but once you heard it, you couldn't unhear it. She inhaled mid-sentence, not for emphasis, but to steady herself. Her eyes flicked to the interviewer, away, back again, calculating, recalibrating, surviving. And then came the silence. Not the awkward kind. The dangerous kind. The interviewer leaned back slightly, offering space, but it wasn't mercy. It was pressure. By not filling the silence, they forced Meghan to sit inside it. Cameras rolling, lights blazing, millions watching. The studio felt quieter even though nothing physically changed. No music, no movement, just expectation. This was no longer about image, it was about endurance. And then, casually, almost gently, the question slid in. It didn't accuse, it didn't shout, it didn't attack, it exposed. The interviewer brought up the public perception that Meghan's private life was chaotic. That behind the polished exterior was mess, conflict, control issues, and then came the follow-up, the one that sucked all the oxygen out of the room. Her marriage, how she manages it under relentless pressure. And finally, the unspoken rumor made spoken, claims that she shaped, even manipulated, Prince Harry's decisions to protect her own narrative. No raised voice, no accusation, just a question hanging in the air like a loaded weapon. The room froze. Meghan's lips parted, closed. She took a slow breath and it caught. Her body reacted before her mind could catch up. Her eyes scanned the room like she was searching for an exit that didn't exist. Blink, jaw tight, hands pressed together harder than before. And the interviewer waited. No rescue, no softening, no redirect. The silence stretched, heavy, merciless. This wasn't gossip anymore. This was identity, agency, accountability. Every rumor she spent years dodging had just cornered her. Live, unfiltered, unavoidable. Her breathing changed, shallow, uneven. Her posture stayed upright, but now it looked fragile, like one wrong word could shatter it completely. She looked at the interviewer, then down. A decision was happening in real time. Be honest or protect yourself. The cameras felt invasive now, every micro-expression magnified. The crew stood frozen, unsure whether they were witnessing television history or a total collapse. And when she finally looked up again, there was no answer. Just a look. The look of someone who had stopped calculating and started feeling. That's when it became clear the interview was already over. The moment had passed the point of recovery. The line between control and collapse had blurred beyond recognition, because this silence didn't come from nowhere. It came from years under a microscope. From the second Meghan stepped into the royal spotlight, she stopped being a person and became a symbol. To some, she's independence and disruption. To others, manipulation and chaos. Every word she speaks is either empowering or calculated, depending on who's listening. There is no neutral ground. And emotional restraint? That's not a branding choice for her, it's survival. She's expected to be strong, but never cold. Vulnerable, but never manipulative. Honest, but never too revealing. Every sentence carries consequences. Every pause becomes evidence. So she learned to lock it all down behind that practice calm. But tension doesn't disappear. It accumulates. And that question didn't create the pressure, it exposed it. All those narratives she's avoided for years. All the contradictions between who she believes she is and who the world insists this she must be. Living inside that gap is exhausting, dehumanizing, and eventually something has to give. What happened on that stage wasn't a meltdown. It was exposure, the stillness, the faltering breath, the darting eyes. That was endurance hitting its limit, not weakness, weariness. The cost of being scrutinized, dissected, and defined by strangers for years. And when the camera stayed on her face, refusing to blink first, we weren't watching an interview anymore. We were watching the weight of history pressed down in real time. The silence wasn't empty. It was crowded with expectations, accusations, restraint, and everything she's never been allowed to say. And that silence set the stage for what came next, because once the armor slips, there's no pretending it didn't. The silence didn't break, it settled. It wrapped itself around the studio, heavy and suffocating, the kind of quiet that makes people afraid to even swallow. Somewhere off camera, someone absolutely wanted to cut. You could feel it, fingers hovering over buttons, producers whispering in panic. But the feed stayed live, the lens stayed locked, and Meghan Markle was still right there, exposed, breathing through something she clearly hadn't planned to face out loud. She leaned forward slightly like she was about to speak. This was the moment everyone waited for. The answer, the defense, the perfectly sculpted response that would pull her back into control. Her lips moved. A word almost escaped. And then, nothing. She stopped herself. Her eyes closed for just a second. Not in defeat, not in drama, but in restraint. Like someone gripping the edge of a cliff, deciding whether to pull themselves up or finally let go. When her eyes opened again, they weren't glossy with tears. They were sharp with effort, with exhaustion, with the raw strain of someone holding themselves together in front of the entire world. Her hands loosened in her lap, not calm, not steady, just tired. Her shoulders dropped a fraction of an inch, barely noticeable, but devastating if you caught it. That tiny shift said more than any statement ever could. This was the collapse. Not loud, not messy, not cinematic, human. The armor, that polished, immovable persona she's worn for years, slipped. And underneath, it wasn't chaos or manipulation or some master plan. It was vulnerability. Unfiltered, unscripted, unavoidable. The audience felt it instantly. No clapping, no murmuring, no reaction at all. It wasn't a moment to consume, it was a moment to witness. The distance between celebrity and viewer evaporated. She wasn't performing anymore, she was negotiating her own limits in real time. The honesty stood on one side, self-protection on the other, and hovering over both was the undeniable reality that millions of eyes were watching her decide. The interviewer still didn't speak. That choice mattered. Any interruption would have given her an out, a reset, a lifeline. But instead, the silence remained, forcing her to sit with the question, with the implications, with every rumor that's ever followed her name like a shadow. Because let's be honest, this was never just about one interview, or one marriage, or one question. This was about control. For years, critics have accused Meghan of pulling strings behind the scenes, of steering Prince Harry away from his family, of shaping narratives, of playing chess while everyone else played checkers. And whether those claims are fair or cruel almost doesn't matter anymore, because they exist, they circulate, they cling. And in that moment, she wasn't fighting the accusations. She was fighting the weight of being defined by them. When she finally spoke, her voice was quieter, slower, stripped of its usual polish. There was no grand explanation, no sweeping denial, just careful words chosen not to convince but to survive. Each sentence felt like it cost her something. Not emotionally explosive, but emotionally expensive. She didn't look triumphant. She didn't look relieved. She looked drained. And that's what made it unsettling. Because this wasn't a PR misstep. It wasn't a viral gaffe. It was the rare instance where the performance cracked just enough to reveal the toll underneath. The constant vigilance. The endless self-monitoring. The impossibility of existing without being interpreted. The interviewer nodded slightly, acknowledging her response without validating or challenging it. The moment had already done its damage. The conversation moved on, technically, but nothing actually moved forward. The energy never recovered. The rhythm stayed broken. Everyone in that studio knew it. What lingered wasn't what she said, it was what she couldn't. That pause, that hesitation, that visible recalibration under fire. Because once an audience sees you reach your limit, they don't forget it. And neither do you. By the time the interview wrapped, Meghan's composure had returned. Mostly. The posture reset. The smile reappeared. But it wasn't the same. Something fundamental had shifted, like a door cracked open that couldn't be fully shut again. And afterward, the speculation exploded. Was it exhaustion? Was it stress? Was it guilt? Or was it simply the human cost of living inside a narrative you can never fully escape? Everyone had an opinion. Everyone projected meaning onto that silence. But the truth is simpler and harsher. That moment showed what relentless scrutiny does, not just to reputations, but to people. When every gesture is interpreted, every relationship politicized, every emotion questioned, eventually, even the strongest fade wears thin. What we witnessed wasn't a downfall, it was a fracture. A reminder that behind the titles, the headlines, the theories, and the outrage cycles, there's still a person absorbing it all. And once you've seen that armor slip, even for a second, you can't unsee it. Because silence like that doesn't happen by accident. It happens when pressure finally finds a crack. Pressure finally finds a crack. Pressure finally finds a crack.